Good afternoon. I am Dr. Ahmed Sidqi, Islamic architecture and urban development consultant. Hello, Dr. Karim. Dr. Ibrahim, I am already inspired by being in such a historical context that is your office since like mid-40s, 1940s, and it's one of your multinational offices, and you used to have your international, I think that the date of your international consultancy is 1939, the first in the Middle East, the first consultancy for architecture and town planning, and you and your late father, Dr. Said Karim, were the planners of big, today, world-class cities since the 1950s, like Jeddah and Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, and many other cities in the Middle East. In fact, today, I'm really thrilled by asking you three major questions, and I would like to learn more about that, since we are really focusing on, since you are the planner of the city of Jeddah, the modern Jeddah that we know it today, and definitely we cannot go and address that without just asking you, what are your impressions and your inputs that you can add for the urban, as an urban planner and as an expert and architect for the flagship of the planning, maybe in the whole globe right now, which is the city of Neom?
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for this presentation and for inviting me to talk about those topics that are very dear to me, because as planners of many cities in the Middle East, we carry a certain responsibility that we have done in the past. We carry it into the future in order to show the right path of evolution, because we are at crossroads at the moment in tourist planning, especially with all the new technologies coming in, concepts of smart cities, and the concept of a smart city is going into tourism, into urban planning, into everything. And we have to address this problem. We will begin now by addressing the problem from the beginning by looking at how to make tourism into the leading industry of a country, so that it doesn't have to depend on its mineral resources or other resources. Now, tourism has been mainly an activity of the rich in the 19th century and beginning of the 20th century. Resorts all over the world were made for the rich. And then beside that, we had cultural and religious tourism. And tourism seemed to be thriving and going well with those sectors. But those sectors are limited. So if we apply the concept of how to make tourism an industry, we have to study the market. Exactly as industry would propose a new product, it would have to tailor to market needs. So if we look at tourism, world tourism or tourism in the Mediterranean area, we will find that only 7% of the tourist potential of that area is geared towards cultural and religious activities. Now, 70% is actually beach tourism, holiday tourism. Now, we have totally neglected this because we are looking at what we have. We're not looking at what the market needs. The market needs beaches. They want holiday on the beach. So, looking at what we have to offer, we have 1,000 kilometers of beaches on the Red Sea on both sides, Egypt and Saudi Arabia. So, we have something, first, the 1,000 kilometers that isn't existing anywhere in the region. Second, we have a 12-month season when all the countries of the Mediterranean have only a 3-month season. We have a 12-month season in our region. Now, this makes a very good foundation on which we can industrialize tourism. Now come the second step. The 70% that we want to access and bring them, let's look into them and find what is the need of every category in there. Because when you want to bring 70% of tourism, as other countries have done, Spain has done it, and they have become the #1 industry. So if Spain has done it, Italy has done it, what sectors of tourism did they aim for? They aimed for all of them, not just 5 stars, not 1 star, but they aimed for all the sectors. So we have about from 5 to 10% people wanting 5 stars in the 5-star sector. We have 15 to 20% people needing the 4-star level. Then we have about 60 to 70% in the 3-star level. The rest are in the 2 and 1-star level. Even the 1 and 2-star level are very important for ethnic type of tourism, where the population can take part in tourist activities through small projects. So only by catering to all those levels in those percentages that they need, and planning our tourist resorts to accommodate all of them, can we have a proper industry of tourism. Because an industry of tourism that does not tailor its product to all the needs of the market will never be an industry. So to be an industry, we have to tailor all the needs of the market. So now we have the area, we have the season, we have the climate. All we have to do is create resorts that actually serve all those levels of the market. That way, in a very short time, we can have the industry of tourism become the #1 industry in the country. We have done that in the beginning of the 80s in Egypt, when the Red Sea was a completely barren area. We went there and applied the concepts of industrialization of tourism. And we applied it, and within 5 years, tourism became the #1 industry in the country. So this is an important aspect that we can apply on the Red Sea area in Saudi Arabia. We can make tourism the #1 industry, so that Saudi Arabia doesn't have to depend on its mineral sources, but will have a continuous income through tourism as a #1 industry. So that is one aspect of my specialization. I mean, my doctor's degree was in tourist planning in the Middle East, so I have a lot of experience there, and doing developing the Red Sea with Dr. Said Karim, with Governor Yusuf Hafifi in the Red Sea, with Governor Tahsin Shannon Suez. All those were sort of brought together, and we achieved our goal, thank God. Now we can do the same on the other side in Saudi Arabia. Now let us take a step further. Those cities, whether they are cities serving or being part of the tourist plan or other type of cities, let us go a bit into what type of future cities are we looking at. We are looking now at smart cities. Smart cities is the future of city planning. Now, while smart cities bring a lot of efficiency in them, we have a huge problem in smart cities that is not addressed. And that problem is the effect of electromagnetic radiation on climate change and on the health of all living systems within those electromagnetic fields. Now, smart cities, with all the applications and sensors going into them, and with more electromagnetic activity that is increasing tremendously every year, we will have a very stressful situation on all life forms in the city. So let us look at climate change to find a solution for this problem. Now, unfortunately, climate change is addressed in a sort of a biased way. It is like a sort of taking an aggressive stance against oil emissions and all that as the main culprit, because the gases in the atmosphere, carbon dioxide, methane, and all that, are trapped in the atmosphere and they cause heat. On the other side, we want to put electricity instead of oil. What happens here is we are putting a bigger danger, because electrical waves, when they move, electromagnetic waves, they create heat. So an electrically charged environment, or the more radiation you have, the more you contribute to global warming. So how can you find a solution to global warming? By putting one thing instead of another, but the new one causes more global warming than the first one. So let us be more scientific and not politically oriented in this thing. Why do gas emissions from petroleum and other chemicals, why do they cause global warming? Why are they trapped in the atmosphere? And why does electromagnetic radiation cause global warming, when we know that the electromagnetic activity of the Earth has electromagnetic fields, electromagnetic activity, it is part of life force. It's a life-giving electromagnetic medium that actually runs or puts life force in all living systems. So we all depend on the electromagnetism of the Earth. We depend on that. Now, so the electromagnetism of the Earth will not overheat living systems because it has life force in it. And one of the things of life force, one of the attributes of life force, is that it has a balancing effect. It has a harmonizing effect that provides the ideal situation for life. Otherwise, it wouldn't be life force. So, electromagnetic radiation of the Earth, as well as all the chemical or otherwise household gases, if they're artificial, they can cause heat. But natural, they don't. When you breathe out, you take in oxygen, you breathe out carbon dioxide and other things. It is part of nature. Energy going in with certain attributes, energy going out with certain attributes. Nature will absorb that. Gases coming out of natural sources, like from cows or excrements of animals, are actually nutrients for nature. They don't cause any global warming or anything. They're nutrients for nature, because nature will automatically absorb them into its cycle, and it needs them. It's part of the energizing aspect and life force of nature. But now, if we produce sort of household gases from modern technology, electricity from modern technology, they are not produced in the Earth. They do not carry life force. So the harmonizing principle and the life-giving principle in electricity or in the chemicals is not there. So there's nothing to balance it. The Earth will not reabsorb them. So if the Earth will not reabsorb them, they will stagnate and cause problems in the atmosphere and also cause health problems for the people. So the solution here is, if I can propose a futuristic solution, and this futuristic solution exists now in the science of biogeometry that we have developed 50 years ago. And this science of biogeometry deals with the life force of the earth. Bio is life force, geo earth, metry measurement. So it's the science of dealing with life force of the earth, of harmonizing the life force in living systems. So we have applied this to many, many projects in the past. We can see in projects with the Swiss government, areas that were plagued with electrosmog, and the whole environment was affected. Humans had lots of health symptoms, animals, plants, cows were not breeding properly, they lost their fertility, the milk production was less, the migrating birds used to go away, animals in the forest left the areas. So there were so many problems that were caused by excessive electrosmog or electromagnetic radiation in the area. Now we provided biogeometry solution. So I'm speaking here, I'm not speaking in a theoretical way. I'm speaking about many years of experience. So we have done many projects in Switzerland, and you can see in the graph in front of you the symptoms or the severity of symptoms before we came in, where you had the severe symptoms, the highest severity were the maximum, and the lower severity of symptoms were very little. This was transformed completely to the opposite. Those free of symptoms or very low symptoms became the main ones, and the severity of symptoms became less. The population itself changed because when the inner stress is relieved, the whole psychic, emotional, mental state of the people changes. The governor of the area of Hamburg he thanked me and said, "Thank you for bringing peace to my region." The aggressiveness of the people was gone. Now, this is what biogeometry solutions can do to a stressful environment. So we have the tools to work with in any future city planning. Now, let us start with smart cities before we go into Neom and find where the problem of smart cities is. While smart cities start with sort of new technologies, put in ever newer shapes, always newer, very interesting shapes and things like that, that take us into the future. So they're very futuristic, and they are just designed there according to futuristic visions. But they have no roots in the earth. They're just an addition. And smart cities, with all their electromagnetic stress inside them, if they're not rooted in the earth, they will very soon be so stressful that nobody can live in them. So, how were cities in general in history designed? Humanity designed its cities always around life force areas. Cities grew around water wells, around rivers. So all those, water is a source of life force. So cities always grew on life force intensive areas. And then if we go to ancient planning, we will find that all the cities were planned according to the distribution of energy or to the energy patterns of the earth. So for example, if you had linear orthogonal cities like square things, these were actually aligned with the energy grid of the earth. So they were planted in the energy grid of the earth. So you had the energy grid of the earth flowing in the streets of the city. So the city became alive with the life force of the earth. Now, if you had star-shaped developments of cities, they were put around centers that radiated. Those centers were mostly had water wells or things like that, that radiated. And when the city radiated from those centers, it radiated life force into all the dwellings of the people in there. So cities, just like trees, they grew out of the earth. They grew out of earth forces. So when they grow out of it, they live forever, because the source of energy is there for eternity. As long as the earth exists, life force exists in your city. So a city can last 50,000 years, 100,000 years. But if you have a sort of a smart city, it has no roots, and the technology changes rapidly. So the proper way of thinking is develop an environmentally sound planning of the city anchored in earth energy patterns to give the city life force for the inhabitants. And then the smart city, with all the technological developments, they come as an additional layers to the original environmental patterns of the city. So now, if I take an example of the city of Neom. Neom is a city that has a huge potential, in my opinion, because I'm looking at the city and seeing what it can do or what it can become as a life force beacon for the whole country. I'm not looking at any present problems they have. All those are solvable. So I see a line. I see this line just cutting through earth energy patterns without being linked to them. So it has no link, so it does not connect to the earth. Now, what if we transform that line into a spine? A spine is the life-giving line in the center of the human body. So if I connect that line to the energy patterns of the earth, and if I can find water centers or things like that, I connect them to the line. The main thing is the line has roots, has branches, has thing. It transforms exactly like the spine of a human being, with all the nerves coming out into all the functions around it. So now, how does it become a spine? By connecting it to the life force of the earth. All of a sudden, this condensing of all those living, let's say, of those living different things that you do in a city, all the functions of a city that are usually spread in a city. By condensing all those functions into a line, you are having a highly condensed energetic flow. This highly condensed energetic flow will have a highly stressful electromagnetic effect, but it has huge potential, because if I bring life force in there, life force becomes amplified to a very high extent inside the line of Neom, so that when you have hospitals there, when you have supermarkets, when you have any activity, sports areas or whatever, or residence, whatever you have in there will be like a healing environment. So you enter into Neom as if you have been plugged into the life force of the earth that gives healing to all living systems in there. Now, the next step will be how it will affect the environment through branching out, because when we connect it to the energy patterns of the earth, it will flow. It will flow like a tree connecting it. So I'm going to sketch a bit how a line can become a spine. So let us go together to the board. So let us draw a line. Let us say I have an area like this, whatever it looks like, and then I have a line going like that. Here it's a double line actually. Now, if I look a bit at the energy patterns of the earth here, I will have the basic configuration will be something like this on a macro level, which will be repeated on a micro level, probably north, south, east, west, like that. So you see the line is cutting through it, so there's a disturbance. They're not connected. A disturbance happens, so it becomes like a crack in the energy of the earth. Now, what if I connect certain areas here? I can connect an area here with this. I can connect an area, make certain connections, very simple connections like this, with that will bring sort of, that will anchor the line into the life force lines of the earth. So this would be a first step, by anchoring it. Then I have other things. I have certain spots in the earth like this, and those spots radiate energy lines in this form. See, so you have a secondary grid here that has to do spots radiating within the shape. I can connect to those spots by connecting also like this, connect to those spots, do different aspects, so that I pull the energy of those spots into the line. Now, the line here, by pulling all that, the water and electromagnetic flow in there becomes embedded in Earth's life force, and it is transformed from a line to a spine. All of a sudden, it will start radiating into the environment like a tree now, because it will radiate in the whole environment. Now, the next step that we can do is find all those points in there and do a spiral connecting the points here into, I'm connecting some of those external points through a spiral movement, and I will do it in both directions, spiral movements like this. So whatever architectural elements I can use here, I can do. There's so many ways of using or putting architectural elements having this shape. Now, what will this do? This will take part of the energy flowing in the line and put them in those double spiral shapes. And there is in science something that we call resonance of shape. Usually we know that we have resonance of frequency. Different frequencies have resonance, but shapes, similar shapes, enter into resonance and have communication. So a shape like this, once the energy flows into it, it creates a resonance with human, animal, and plant DNA. Because you see, this shape is very much, if energy takes this configuration, so all of a sudden Neom will actually interact with life's DNA in the area. Now, this looks very futuristic, but the whole idea, don't look at our methodology, because this is something we can do. It's not a problem at all. Look at our results. And we have the results, as I showed you in the graphs of Hamburg, how we can transform communities into very healthy, peaceful communities through biogeometry. So our results speak for themselves. How we do it here, although I'm explaining it, but it's not, the idea is results. Now, economically, we know that technology, today it changes at certain pace, tomorrow it will change at faster pace, and all that. So if you make a city today that's number one in technology, more advanced than the other, a month later the other will be more and more. There'll come a day when technology might change every week or even every day. Like when you have a phone or a computer and all that, you keep changing the firmware all the time. So if I want to put, now this would be the first layer of my city. I'm not speaking of any technology yet. So people come to live here as they come to live around the River Nile, for example. It's a healthy environment, and we're going to build the city here, and they're going to live there and have all the health effects we are planning into them. Now, technology is a second layer. So we can bring the most advanced technology and add it here, but adding layers of technology, it doesn't have to be in one go. You don't bring everything, because we're not building an AI city that has to be developed with all its possibilities from the first day. No, we can add it layer by layer. So all the technology layers of the city can be spread in time according to our budgets. Our basic configuration of the city will not put a huge stress on the budget, because this is the cheapest part, is anchoring the city into the life force of the earth. The technology layers, whatever they cost, whenever they come, they are a welcome addition to the city. And it is the city, the quality of life force in the city, that will actually make every aspect of technology that comes in human friendly. So this environmental basis is actually a humanization of a city. I mean, this would be my personal, let's say, input to make Neom a leading beacon in a field that no other city in the world has addressed yet. We would be the first, and here would be the most advanced. The leadership will come here from being one with nature, not from being one with technology. Technology is always an addition. So I think with this, we have sort of touched on some of the aspects of what we can do for Neom and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where we feel an obligation to present the possibilities we have. Whether they're applied or not is secondary, but it's my obligation to give the latest of our know-how to present it for the future of humanity. Thank you very much.